Alright, here's my audience, and I will set this up. If we can get it. Alright. Does that look good?
Mm-hmm.
Almost.
Oh. Got your short.
There we go. Good?
Mm-hmm.
Alright. My name is Mike McAllister. This is my first speech, and it's my informative speech, and this is for Comms 101. And I just want to start out with a short illustration about bamboo. Bamboo is actually not a tree. Most people assume it is a tree, but bamboo is actually a grass. And something about bamboo is one of the most unique plants in the world. Bamboo actually, in the first year, bamboo only grows inches by inches throughout that time. But once bamboo gets to a year, bamboo automatically starts growing by the foot, and within a 24-hour span, or even over time, shortly, bamboo can just grow dramatically in time. And I think in this opportunity that we have right now as Christians is we look at our current situation and surroundings like things are slow and God's not moving as much as we want Him to. But I think God has put us in a great opportunity in our generation where once we revive ourselves, God can revive this country and our nation overall dramatically in a short time span, just like bamboo can dramatically grow in a short time span. And today I just want to talk to you guys about church planting. This opportunity came to me this summer in Boulder, Colorado, where I was able to serve at a church that planted in only 2-year time span, where I could see the roots and behind the scenes of what was going on at this church and many things of how church planting is done, how church planting, the pros and the cons and all the hard things that have went on behind the scenes and what pastors go through in this process. And that's kind of my purpose for this speech, is just to inform you what church planting is, why we need church planting, and what we as Christians and non-believers should get behind a church planting overall. And that's what I first want to answer today is, what is church planting? And I believe church planting is the establishment of Christians coming together and becoming the church for the people. See, the church is not for us as Christians. The church is for everyone. And that's what we have to process. And in Matthew 16:18, the New International Version says, "And I tell you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not overcome it." And in this verse, this is the first time we see the word church in the New Testament. And I really believe that God values His church, so God obviously values church planners who are trying to build God's church. And church planting opens the opportunity for new and fresh ideas for this generation to come. And there's a scene in Luke 15 where Jesus tells 3 parables to 2 crowds. The first parable is the parable of the lost sheep. Then the second parable, Jesus tells the parable of the lost coin. And then the third and last final parable Jesus tells is about the prodigal son who is lost. Now there's something ironic about these 3 parables is all 3 of these things are lost. But just because something is lost does not mean it doesn't have value. You can be lost or you can be found, but you still have value. And I think this is what the motive and what the church should be, is going after lost things. And Jesus relates this to these people. In these 2 groups He's talking to, is both is lost. And what I want to talk about is the mission of the church, and what church planting should be about is going after lost people and lost things in this generation to come. And that's why I want to talk to my next point, is where I lead to why should we be involved with church planting, or why we should church plant. And according to Hartford Institute of Religion Research, more than 40% of Americans say they go to church weekly. As it turns out, though, however, less than 20% are actually in church. In other words, more than 80% of Americans are finding more fulfilling things to do on the weekends. And I don't know if you heard that statistic, but 80% of people are finding things to do on the weekends rather than in church. So we have an epidemic that we as Christians are called to do and get our hands dirty and get involved with. And we have to ask ourselves, who was the church for? When we look at Matthew 28:16-20, it says, "Then the 11 disciples went to Galilee, to the mountain where Jesus had told them to go. When they saw him, they worshipped him," talking about Jesus, "but some doubted. Then Jesus came to them and said, 'All authority in heaven and on earth has given to me. Therefore, go and make disciples of all nations.'" Go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything I have commanded you. And surely I am with you always to the very end of age. Here Jesus gives us the Great Commission. And this is what I want to answer, is why we should church plant. Because we as Christians are called to share the gospel with God's people, the lost, and as Christians, we should be rehearsing the gospel in our own lives daily. And something about the Great Commission is the Great Commission requires action. And something with church planting, you have to have taking action when church planting. So what do we need to do about it? Well, first, we need to join a team or get involved that is looking to church plant. And second, we need to support financially, because church planting obviously takes financial needs. And whether we are involved in a church or looking for a church, I believe we can still help those who are looking to plant churches. And the third and final thought I want to give to my audience is this, is to be praying. Pray for an opportunity for someone to plant a church. Because we don't need churches where there's a bunch of churches already. We need to take churches where church is not heard of, or where church is unknown in those areas. And in closing, I would like to just remind you that it is our calling to share the gospel to the lost. And you don't have to be a church planter to be a part of God's calling to be the light of the world. So it's our mission as Christians. We need to live out the Great Commission. We need to